Welcome to the Handful of Leaves podcast. My name is Cheryl, and with me I have Uncle Vijaya. For those who are big fans of our YouTube and our podcast, you will recognize that Uncle Vijaya has done an episode with us before. So I'm very excited to have Uncle Vijaya back.
And I'm excited to be here too.
Awesome. We will be talking about distinguishing between false Dhamma and true Dhamma. Nowadays, there's so many people who teach Dhamma. If you just Google or you just YouTube, everyone calls themselves a Dhamma teacher. We have lay people, we have monastics, random people. So information is everywhere, and anyone can package their teachings as the way to enlightenment. So for those who are interested in Buddhism, how can we discern that we are truly learning the Buddha's words and the Eightfold Path? So Uncle Vijaya is awesome. He's so experienced, very, very experienced Dhamma teacher. And I can't think of anyone better who will enlighten us on this topic.
No. Thank you. Okay, so what we in Buddhist circles would call, what you are referring to is Adhamma. Dhamma is that which is approved by the Buddha, taught by the Buddha, and we're very fortunate that even during the Buddha's time when he was still alive, what he taught was codified, classified, and approved by the Buddha. I'll go into that in a minute. But during the Buddha's time also, this was necessitated by the fact that there was a lot of Adhamma going on. Adhamma meaning that which is not done. And a lot of people were either on their own making claims or for publicity purposes were misrepresenting the Buddha. One is the misrepresenting, one is genuinely not understanding. Right? Behind all of this is the fact that the Dhamma is not easy to understand. It is not for the faint-hearted. Yeah? The Buddha realized that immediately after his enlightenment, he asked himself whether he should share this Dhamma, which has brought him so much of personal benefit. Then he hesitated and he said, it's too difficult, it is too complex, and may not be worth his while to try and explain it to people who are covered with dust, whose eyes who cannot see. So it's a waste of time. He was on the verge of moving away because of the possibility that Adhamma would interfere, whether he wanted to go and waste the rest of his life, or the thought occurred to him, why don't he become a Pacceka Buddha? Pacceka Buddhas are Buddhas in exactly like our Buddha, but they do not have the ability to teach. So they are called silent Buddhas. So the Buddha thought of becoming a Pacceka Buddha.
This is a very profound moment because in the past, the Buddha actually forsake the opportunity to become an Arahant because he wanted to become a Buddha to benefit all sentient beings. But the fact that when he became a Buddha, he then had the doubts of whether he should teach. So it really points to how sublime this Dhamma is.
How sublime. It wasn't the failing on the Buddha's part, but the Buddha's own realization of whether there are beings that would understand. Why waste? Why cast pearls before swine? You know? So when that thought occurred to him, we are so lucky. Venerable Sangharakshita says that mankind's fate hung in the balance. Very dramatic. Now, should I not? And then Maha Brahma comes down and pleads with the Buddha and says, please do go ahead and teach, because there are beings with little dust in their eyes. And then the Buddha, it's not that the Buddha needed to be told that. The Buddha knew it, but I think this is the way of expressing that there was a need and there was the assurance. History has shown that he made the right decision to teach, because there were so many who benefited right down to our own time. Okay, so it was Maha Brahma who pleaded with the Buddha to teach the Dhamma, and the Buddha proceeded, and the Buddha achieved a lot. But during the 45 years of his teaching, there was so much of Adhamma as well. Doing it viciously, others were doing it innocently. They didn't understand, and the Buddha had to constantly remind his followers, yeah, to go ahead and follow his Dhamma. And he made many discourses where he separated the Dhamma from the Adhamma. Yeah, how do you differentiate between the two? And we are fortunate in that the Buddha himself, yeah, approved what is Dhamma and what is not. One incident is just before the Buddha passed away. The Buddha was already quite old, reaching the end of his career. And one of the strongest opponents, those who were teaching other views, was a philosopher called Niganta Nataputta. And he had just died. And after he died, because he had not made clear what is that he was teaching, and he made final decisions on what to teach and what not to teach, when he died, there was a huge amount of controversy and it became very ugly. Okay. Now we come back to the Buddha. So the Buddha was in this place and he had given the Dhamma talk, and he said, okay, now I want to rest. And he told Sariputta, while I am resting, I can see that the monks are very alert. They are not sleepy, you see, and they are ready for more Dhamma talk. So while I rest, you go ahead and teach on my behalf. Get the picture? It's late in the evening. Buddha had just finished. The monks were still alert and ready to listen more. And Sariputta was told, okay, please deputize for me. And Sariputta said, now that Niganta Nataputta has just died, there's so much of controversy because there's no authority to say what is the truth and what is not. We will avoid this. So he said that to do this is to list out everything that the Buddha taught. Now we know that the popular saying is there were 84,000 units of Dharma that the
Yes.
Buddha taught over his 45 years. So he said, let us codify that. Let us collate that. Let us organize that. Okay. And remember, it was a culture which had no writing. It was an oral culture. And Venerable Sariputta decided to chant together in the Digha Nikaya. Yeah, it is recorded as the chanting together, Sangiti Sutra. Yeah. So he said, let us all together recite everything that the Buddha taught. Right? And they used a device which we use for remembering mnemonics, because it's not a written thing, it's an oral thing, and to remember. So what they did was they put this knowledge that they had accumulated, codified it into 1, 2, 3. What is 1? What is 2? What is 3? Triple gem, anicca, dukkha, anatta, all the threes, all the fours, all the way down. So the whole night, Sariputta and the rest of the monks together recited everything that they rehearsed, everything that the Buddha spoke in ones, twos, threes, fours, and so on. Right? And by the time they finished, it was already morning. And the Buddha got up from his rest and he said, I heard it all. I approve. So
Oh,
we have the,
sadhu.
yes, my hair also stands on it. Sadhu, because that tells us that we have right down to our time what the Buddha taught. This is the Dhamma, right? And anything that is not included in this, that is not the Dhamma. Okay?
Mm.
So,
So this gives
so
a
we have
lot of assurance and confidence that whenever we hear something that we're not sure of, we can go back and check because the Buddha gave the stamp of approval.
absolutely. That was when the Buddha was still alive. Immediately after the Buddha died, 7 months after he died, we had the first council. And in that first council, Venerable Ananda, thus have I heard. One of the arrangements that Venerable Ananda made with the Buddha before he agreed to serve him was whatever Dhamma talk that the Buddha gave, if he had not been present, the Buddha would repeat. So Venerable Ananda, he had a fantastic memory. Yeah, he listened and he remembered everything that the Buddha had taught in his presence as well as outside of it. For example, it is said that he spent 3 months in Tavatimsa heaven preaching to his mother. When he came back, he repeated that to Venerable Ananda. So that when the first council took place, very soon, while it was still hot, it was recorded again using the same mnemonic device of ones, twos, threes. Okay? So we can rest assured that this is the Dhamma. If any other teaching comes about later, well and good, provided that it fits in with the teaching of the Dhamma. Why did I say that? Because the Buddha said, don't reject everything as not Dhamma. Sometimes it can qualify, although the Buddha himself didn't say it's Dhamma, because he says his teaching is like the footprint of the elephant. It's the biggest footprint in the jungle. Yeah. All other footprints will fit into that. So other religions would also teach Dhamma mixed with Adhamma. The Buddha's Four Noble Truths is the Dhamma and it is not adulterated. This is the beauty of the Buddha's teaching from then up to now. Don't condemn everybody else. He always says, don't condemn others. What they say may have elements of Dhamma. Look for that. And then this coincides with what the Buddha had taught. So accept. This way we avoid a whole lot of quarrels and so on. To say that all religions teach false except Buddhism, the Buddha said no. That is not a sensible way of approaching it. Yeah? If what they say coincides with what the Buddha said, well and good. If it is not, without rancor, without anger, without bad manners, don't reject. Just let it go. Let it go. Just don't accept. So this is the Dhamma and Adhamma. We are saying this because in today's day and age, with internet, with so many new knowledges coming in, people are free to think for themselves. Buddhism never stops you from thinking for yourself. But whatever is taught must be in line with the Dhamma. Okay?
I'm just thinking about this question because a lot of it depends on our own independent investigation of what the Buddha said, right? The suttas. But as beginners, sometimes the suttas can be very difficult to understand. We are a blank slate in that sense.
Yes, okay. The Buddha has an answer for that. He says his Dhamma is very deep, but it is like stepping into the ocean. When you are on the beach, only your toes get wet. But the deeper you go, it becomes more and more complex. Okay? So start with the basics. Start with the basic, which is the Four Noble Truths. Right? Take as much as you can, for which you need competent teachers. Now, teachers can be those who are part of the tradition, all our Sangha community, lay Buddhist speakers and so on the one hand. All right. Then, of course, we have the advantage of the internet today. We have the technology. So we can use that as well. But take it a little bit at a time. Don't jump into the deep end of the pool. Like the Buddha says, first get your toes wet, then get your knees wet. Don't go and jump into the pool and say, tomorrow I want to be an arahant. It is a gradual path. So, answer your question, look for teachers who will take you by the hand. My own teacher was Venerable Narada. All right? And then, of course, late Chief. And they didn't teach me about Abhidhamma at the beginning. They taught me how to be a good Buddhist on a day-to-day basis. Right? I was comfortable with that. I didn't need to go jump into meditation and all of that. And as I went along, I went deeper. So that way you don't get frustrated. A lot of people jump in with too high expectations and then they give up and blame Buddhism for it. Buddhism is not to blame. Our approach is to what to blame. So we always are advised to look for competent teachers. And we are so lucky in this day and age, an unbroken chain from the time of the Sangiti Sutra to now, we have teachers who are able to help us to follow, understand. But we must develop the humility and the patience to say it's a gradual path. It cannot happen overnight. Some people are lucky. They are prepared. Like in the sutras, we hear of people gaining instant arahanthood. Why? Because it has all been developed in past lives. So like Venerable Assaji tells Venerable Sariputta, just one line and Venerable Sariputta. Okay? But we have to wait.
We have to develop our spiritual faculties now. So next time, hopefully someone tells us one line and we get it.
Absolutely. Little by little, we build a mountain. Okay?
Yes. And you touch upon the point of having good teachers are very, very important. So what are the qualities that we should look out for in good teachers?
A good teacher. First, their own behavior. How do they carry themselves? Does what they say match what they do? A lot of teachers have their aura. So, and their own path. It's easy to see. Very soon you can see the hypocrite from the genuine. And they're all around us. There are bogus monks everywhere. And you can see, just look at the wrist. If there's a Rolex there, then okay, that's a good indicator. Don't follow him when he tells you to renounce everything and follow him. So, like little things, yeah, be sharp, be humble. Don't necessarily say, I know better than him. The Buddha says that many occasions, especially in the Mahaparinibbana Sutra, the Buddha tells us that when you hear something, don't reject it outright. Don't accept it outright. If that's something in praise of the Buddha, don't necessarily rejoice. Yeah. Listen and put it against, does this tally with what the Buddha said? Here, let me share with you this one, which I think is very beautiful. A very senior monk in Buddhist and Pali University in Sri Lanka shared this with us. He quoted an article which appeared significantly in Sri Lanka about somebody telling us how to conduct ourselves. He says, if you are still a lay devotee, enjoy all the worldly pleasures your senses require you to do, and experience that they are not permanent. Now, this guy is advising us that if you are still lay people, enjoy life. Be hedonistic, the five senses, because if you don't know, you don't know what you're giving up. When you get fed up, then you give up. Now, this monk is asking, even in today's day and age, there are people claiming that this is Buddhism. We know that the Buddha has taught us to treat this thing as if it's like a man whose beard is on fire. If his beard is on fire, he won't wait to see the end of the fire to examine the scientific reasons for fire and so on. He will put it out straight away. We are struck by the poison arrow of samsara. We cannot wait until tomorrow. We don't have up to tomorrow. So you see, this is a good example of Adhamma.
Mm.
What do? We put it against what the Buddha taught. We don't throw it away and say, no, this is rubbish. Examine, does it make sense? Yeah. Does it conform with what I have learned so far about what the Buddha has said? The Buddha says all is suffering. And he says that this suffering persists all the time. And everything is anicca. Anicca meaning everything is impermanent. So this life now is impermanent. I cannot wait for tomorrow. I cannot wait. There is no tomorrow. It's akalika. It is transcending time. So when this guy says, have fun, enjoy life, and then when you are old, decide to become a Buddhist, no. This is Adam. And that monk shared this with us to make this point that even today it's so easy to go wrong.
And it's so scary because it's like half correct, half wrong. Half correct in the sense that yes, we have to contemplate about impermanence.
Absolutely. It is that half correct thing. But the Buddha says if we give in to our emotions, and simply because we think it does not agree, that will cloud our thinking. The Buddha says, don't rejoice and don't get angry, but calmly examine what this guy said and say, no, this is not the Dhamma. This is Adam. Dhamma is immediately, your beard is burning or you have been struck by a poison arrow, you don't wait for tomorrow. Right? So to answer this, I go back to the Buddha's teaching and say, no, I cannot accept this. So it's very difficult because especially today with the commercialization of Buddhism through mindfulness training and all of that, it's so easy for us to think that if we do all of this for material gain, see, whatever the Buddha taught was to lead us towards renunciation, to lead us towards giving up. Here we are, how to make millions using mindfulness. I brought this up with Venerable Jayasaro and asked him, is it not wrong for them to use it? He said, no, because mindfulness in itself is good. So if a person practices mindfulness, even if it is for the wrong reason, it is better than no mindfulness at all. Get the point?
I get the point, but I don't really agree. If the person, let's say, trains to become a sniper and uses mindfulness training to help them to kill more people, isn't that wrong all the way?
Yes, it is wrong all the way. It is definitely wrong. Hitler, for example, probably was very mindful, but he was wrong. We cannot approve. This is where the Buddha says, step back. Is this possible? Is it not? But we have to admit that all over the world, people who go into mindfulness, whatever the reason, have become calm. So the immediate fallout from that is better calmness, maybe more patience. And hopefully later, he will step into the path. But that is better than allowing him to go into the way of, remember those days for character training, they treat you as a doormat and people are making lots of money, kill everybody, jump on the top. That kind of very bad teaching on materialism is sort of gone out of fashion today. More people are into mindfulness. So maybe it's a slow but better movement. Maybe we are getting more intelligent. Maybe we are getting slightly more wise.
At least it's a step in the right direction.
A little step, but in the right direction now.
So what if we have friends who follow the guidance of wrong teachers? So meaning we think their teachers are wrong because of perhaps their ethical conduct or perhaps their teachings are a little bit fishy.
Yes.
How can we help them?
We can help them first go back to again what the Buddha's advice. First thing is don't reject them, don't condemn them, don't take an antagonistic view, don't pity them, yeah, all of them. Don't lose your respect for them. They are thinking wrong, but you have to practice your metta, karuna, mudita, upeka all the time. All right? Always remember that whenever you want to go and condemn somebody, you condemn yourself first because you have gone into anger and so on. So first thing is develop a mind of metta towards everybody. Follow the Buddha's teaching. Take it, test it against what he had taught. Is this Dhamma? Is this not Adhamma? If it conforms with what the Buddha taught, accept it. If it does not, mindfully, carefully, without anger, explain to your friend, this is not Dhamma. If he chooses not to follow, like in the case of Devadatta, no matter what the Buddha did, he constantly went against the Buddha. If that is the case, then leave it. The Buddha left him alone. There was this other guy, Channa. Channa was very proud, and Channa became a monk, and he was impossible to control to the point that even the Buddha couldn't control him. He was so egoistic. The Buddha advised the monks to boycott. Not out of anger or whatever, but we can't do anything with you. We better leave you alone. So that is the advice we are given. Don't compromise ourselves. Don't go into anger, condemnation. People who are too enthusiastic about their religion, they want everybody to follow their way. And they condemn anybody who doesn't. Buddha says, no, don't do that. Don't compromise yourself. You must all the time be that lotus flower. If you can change, effect the change. A lot of people have trouble with convincing their parents to go from wrong behavior to right behavior. If you can, it'll be good if you can change. But to fight and create more anger and hatred, that is not the Buddha's way. Patience, tolerance, understanding. So use those three as your guidelines to, if possible, change people with wrong views. But if it is not possible, leave them.
And sometimes the wisest thing is to actually walk away, because that is
Yes.
also a form of understanding that any more effort that I try will just lead to unwholesome states to arise.
For me, so before I throw, filth, I must remember my hand will get dirty first. But that shouldn't give rise to a sense of superiority. A lot of people we know saying, oh, I am safe, oh, I'm a good Buddhist, I follow, that guy is going to hell. That kind of superiority also is ego. That you have to guard. That's more difficult to guard against. A lot of people take a very self-righteous view. The Buddha constantly warns us, don't be self-righteous. If you can help the person, more than being self-righteous, you have to develop metta, karuna, more karuna, compassion for his wrong view. Metta, karuna, mudita. Upeka is that highest level. Don't suffer with the suffering.
And once people, let's say, once people leave these wrong teachings, what I think can happen is they lose faith in Buddhism altogether, because what they knew to be Buddhism is completely wrong. And if they find that out, they could be very lost. So how can we support them after they leave, in that sense?
Well, partly we can put it down to their own karma. They are not ready yet. Yeah, they may not be bad people. This is an important point to say. You have to see whatever goodness. There's nobody who's totally bad or totally wrong. All right. Whatever good that he does could eventually serve him in good state to bring him along the right path. Maybe this life it went wrong. All right. But Hopefully, next life he born into a Buddhist family. Whatever good he did, follow the right way, then he is saved. Okay, it's one way. Another way is to accept that not everybody can follow the path in the same way. So support them to the extent that we can. Don't make matters worse by being self-righteous, as I said, by trying to change that person and creating more anger, more hatred. Maybe the better approach is to, of course, radiating metta, behaving towards him with the same compassion without a sense of superiority.
Thanks so much for sharing. And I'm just wondering if there's anything that you have prepared that you want to share.
I would like to share a lovely story. There was this monk, yeah, his name was Punna. Yeah. Punna came to the Buddha one day and told the Buddha, Master, I want to go away to a very far away country and share my life with the people there. Yeah? But before I go, can you please give me a short teaching that I can use to meditate? So the Buddha gives him that short teaching, which is to do with the five senses. That whenever we use our five senses to attach to objects in the world, that leads to pain and suffering. But the same five senses, when they attach, we do not connect. We disengage ourselves from this, that leads to happiness. So that was a short teaching. Then the Buddha says, where are you going? And Punya says, I'm going to a place called Suna Pranta. And Buddha said, you're going to that place? That's a very dangerous place. The people there are very unfriendly. What will you do if those people ridicule you? If they ridicule me, he says, I am so happy they're only ridiculing me. They do not hit me. And the Buddha says, what if they do hit me? Then he said, I will say, I'm so happy they only hit me with a stone, but they didn't hit me with a stick. Then what if they hit you with a stick? Then I'll say, they didn't hit me with a knife. And what if they do hit me with a knife? I'm glad they didn't kill me. What if they do kill you? Then I will say, I'm very happy that I am waiting to leave this existence. I'm waiting to attain nirvana. These people have helped me by killing. So in all instances, I will maintain goodwill towards them. And the story goes that the Buddha said, now you are ready to go. So I've said this because your question about how do we treat people who are antagonistic towards us. Right? Always find some positive, always develop your 4 Brahmaviharas. Okay? And the story goes that he did go and he did meditate on what was told. He became an Arahant. They came back and told the Buddha Punya had died. He said, yes. He never bothered me. He didn't ask me too many questions.
Such a short yet profound teaching.
There's one I'd like to share with you. I think this is relevant. The Buddha's foster mother was Maha Prajapati Gautama. You have been asking me how to tell right Dhamma and wrong Dhamma. Okay? Well, Venerable Gautami came to the Buddha and said, there are so many teachings. How do I tell the right Dhamma from the wrong Dhamma? Your question. And the Buddha explained, of whatsoever teachings, Gautami, thou canst assure yourself thus. If I hear anything that makes me more angry or more happy or what, conduce to passions, not to dispassion, to bondage, not to detachment, to increase of worldly gain, not to decrease of them, to covetousness, not to frugality, to discontent, not to content, to company, not solitude, to sluggishness, not energy, to delight in evil, not delight in good. If any of these teachings lead in that direction of such teachings, thou mayest with certainly affirm Gautami, this is not the norm. If any of these apply, then this is not what I taught. This is not the discipline. But of whatsoever teachings thou canst assure yourself that they are the opposite of these things that I have told you, these teachings thou mayest with certainty affirm, this is the norm. This is the discipline. Now we can see in the world today, so many teachings, so many ways of behavior that is increasing so much anger, hatred, greed, all in the name of religion. We can safely say this is not what the Buddha. But if it teaches compassion, if it teaches sharing, if it teaches peace, solitude, then this is. So it's very basic, very simple. Right? A lot of your questions you were asked is answered by that.
This is a beautiful checklist, right? That is offered by the Buddha.
By the Buddha himself. So we don't need to go anywhere else. You see? We were constantly told, go back to the Nikayas. One more way of checking. Do these ways of thinking appear in the Nikayas? Like, remember the one who said, enjoy your life so that you get fed up, then you give up? Now, is it in the Nikayas? No, there's nothing in the Nikayas.
And well, I'm curious, what about within Buddhism? There are so many different traditions.
Yeah.
And they can be, most of them are similar, but some can be quite different, especially in terms of the focus and the meditation techniques. And I tend to lean towards the conservative side, meaning if I found a tradition that I feel like, okay, it helps me, I think that I'm aligned with the teachings, and I believe this is the same for many people as well, where they say, don't go and confuse yourself.
Four Noble Truths. That's all the Buddha teaches. He kept saying that. I only teach one thing, suffering, the end of suffering. All that I'm here to do is to teach you to be happy. Now, you want to find this by being happy? Go ahead. Does it make you happy? Go to me again. Yeah. Certainly, I agree with you. I am a Theravadi. I have accepted it. I have a great deal of interest in what all the other traditions teach. But I have found, after so many years, that all these great traditions all teach the same four noble truths. See? The Buddha's teaching is so comprehensive that all these different methods to suit different personalities. Even the Buddha himself, he didn't teach the same thing to everybody. He saw people's capacities. Intelligent people, he taught intelligent things. People who couldn't understand, he just said, rub this white cloth, you can become a... Yeah? So these traditions of Buddhism arose, yeah, to suit different temperaments, but do they all lead to the ultimate truth? Do they all lead to nirvana? It does for those individuals, so be it. I have enough problems looking after my own salvation. I don't even have time to worry about my grandchildren.
Yeah. And then it goes back to the point that time is so limited. This human rebirth is so rare.
Yes.
What are we going to waste our time with all the kepo stuff?
Exactly. You just follow the Four Noble Truths. Do good, avoid evil, purify the mind. It's as simple as that. All these Nikayas, all this is good for the intelligent man. But what the Buddha says that we don't want all that. We don't need all of that. We need the simple do good, 5 precepts, avoid evil, 5 ennoblers, purify the mind, rid your mind of lobha, dosa, moha. You're free. But it's very, very difficult. You know that story, don't you? About this guy, Bodhidharma. Bodhidharma is the great Indian saint who brought Buddhism to China and Japan. Anyway, on his way to China, he was stopped by a chief. When the chief caught hold of Venerable Bodhidharma. He said, teach me about Buddhism. Bodhidharma was going to go into a 1 hour talk. He said, no, I don't have time for that. Just tell me in 4 lines, what does Buddhism teach? Very easy. He said, do good, avoid evil, purify the mind. This is the teaching of all the Buddhas. So the guy says, if that is all, then your Buddhism, any child of 5 can understand. Bodhidharma said, a child of 5 can understand, but cannot practice. That is the point. Purify the mind. Do good, avoid evil, I think most of us can. Purify the mind. To remove the anger, hatred, greed, jealousy, and all of these, mess up the mind. Can we clarify that? If, as he says to Gautami, if all these different traditions can help me purify the mind, your tradition may not help me purify my mind. My tradition, I'm comfortable with it. Okay? So I find the tradition that helps me best.
Thank you so much for sharing. And I think with that, we can come to the end of this episode as well. I have personally gained so much from Uncle Vijaya's teachings, where he puts things in such a simple way to understand, cuts through all the nonsense and go back to the Buddha's teachings, to check against what he mentioned or didn't mention. From there, with a clear mind, objective mind, discern for ourselves whether whatever information that we gain can actually benefit us or not. Thank you to all our listeners who have come towards the end, and I hope you like this episode. Give us 5 stars and share this with your friends. See you, stay happy and wise.
Sadhu, sadhu.